Hello everybody and welcome along once again to another edition of the Rebel White Ball. I suppose we have to say that we're nearing the home straight with a lot of the competitions, the GA competitions in particular at semi-final or final stage. But I think the deterioration of the weather conditions has really brought home to us the fact that, this is a real challenge for clubs to be operating this time of the year. You may remember last year the club scene came first and then the county, which from a pitch and an organisational point of view was far better because inter-county matches take place at the county grounds and they generally can, put up with, they're in such a condition they can take adverse weather conditions, whereas club pitches are not by and large able to do that. But I think it's, with a lot of debate last weekend about this proposal being about changing the county football championship, but I think far more importantly, it's vital that everybody who's involved in GA at any level would ensure that in this split calendar that, okay, we have to accept that the inter-county goes first and the club follows, but that the club scene begins, the club championship begins no later than early August. Because I do know that there are a group of people out there who would like to see the inter-county move into August and maybe September for their own benefit. They'd argue about media exposure, but it just cannot be tolerated. And I think we're very lucky here in Cork to have got this far with the weather conditions we've had over the past couple of weeks in particular. And yesterday's rain and wind brought home the fact that, I'm going to be talking about matches here that may not take place. Be talking about venues that are certainly going to change. But anyway, I suppose last weekend there was a few controversies in terms of referees getting a bit of grief, but I think that we're so lucky in the GA that the refereeing structure is quite adequate. You have these referees, they bring their umpires, they bring their 4 umpires, they bring their linesmen, and there's no huge communication between referees and linesmen about what's happening in the pitch. And I actually noticed an article recently in rugby where they're concerned about the refereeing and the officialdom at their game, and particularly this whole relationship between the referee and the TMO. And the person writing the article, who was a rugby person, was making the point that maybe they could learn something from the way the GA do business. And my God, is that a change? I mean, some of us are brought up to think that being a referee was nearly the last bastion of human existence. These people are providing a huge service every weekend, every day of the week, in covering matches. So rather than highlight maybe a few incidents that happened last week, we had the Patrick Horgan sending off, even though I noticed the Glen Rovers making very little noise about that. In fairness to them, then you had the situation in Douglas where there was allegedly a foul maybe missed by a referee, which resulted in a goal, and from the puck out, then one of the Douglas players was sent off. So by and large, of course, people make errors. My God, probably half us won't be in the planet only for it. But I do think that we're lucky here in Cork, and maybe in other counties as well, that lucky number one, that people are volunteering to become referees, and that they have a well-organised structure in terms of their linesmen, umpires and all that. So we've 22 county championship games this weekend. Some of them are semi-finals, quarter-finals, some of them are slaw and lat competitions, which are so important for the clubs that are involved in it. The Camogie, we're down to, I think it's one adult final. Ladies football are at semi-final and final stage as well. We'll be talking a little bit about soccer, and particularly the women's game here in Ireland, what a boost it got during the week. And we look forward to maybe what happens, what can happen for that team over the next 12 months or so, or 10 months or so. And then for those of you who are Manchester United fans, you might like now to disappear underneath the table there for the next 10 or 15 minutes. But anyway, we're going to start with the premier scene of football here in Cork, and the way this operates at this stage is that Douglas are through to a semi-final, and then we have 3 quarter-finals to be played. On Friday night, St. Finbarr's take on Éire, and that game, all the quarter-finals are on in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. For St. Finbarr's, they've been playing okay this year without exactly setting the world alight, but they've had a number of injuries. They were county champions 3 years ago, and they take on Éire, who were playing, well, back 13 years ago, they were playing the Mid-Cork Junior Football Championship. They've won the county championships all the way up, and they're now a premier senior team. This is going to be a test of where they're at. They won 2 of their games in the group stage, which means that they're well capable of dining at this particular top table. But you'd have to say that, St. Finbarrs, it would be a big surprise if Aero was to win that game, or to win that game on Friday night. Then on Sunday you have two matches. The 2 o'clock game is Castlehaven versus Valley Rovers, and Valley Rovers very much involved in hurling as well, through to a Premier Intermediate hurling final. And keeping the two games going can be really challenging, but it's the policy of a number of clubs, and thankfully from this point of view it's great to see that happening. They take on Castlehaven, and of course Castlehaven are helped by the fact that St. Finbarrs are out of the hurling, because a number of, the Callahan brothers play hurling with them. So Castlehaven, I think, will be, the fancied side. And even though that maybe they haven't been playing that well in the group stages, it's a huge testament to them after losing the county final against Nemo Rangers, that, they're back up on the horse again. And I think they're, it's not that I know that they're one of the leading teams for this championship. The next game at 4 o'clock is Clonakilty. Maybe some people would consider them the surprise packets, if you like, to get this far in the championship, but they have beaten the last day out against St. Finbarrs. They faced Duhallow, and the day of the divisions is well and truly over in terms of winning competitions in Cork, because of there's huge mitigating factors against them. Okay, they have the players in terms of the number of players, but in terms of preparation, it wouldn't surprise me, and I don't know anything about the preparation of Duhallow, if this is their first time getting together for this match on Sunday afternoon. I mean, there's 2 of their teams are involved in the Duhallow Junior Football game and Duhallow Junior Football Championship final on Friday night, and then 4 teams that will be taking games on Saturday. So Clonakilty, they should be winning this, I think, if they are at that level. Now they've made huge improvements under management, the management team that they have this year. But whether they're, a semi-final team, well, that remains to be seen. But I think that'll be the kind of closest match maybe of the weekend. Then in the senior A football, you've St. Michael's and Mallow, they're through to the semi-finals, and you've that as a consequence. We have 2 quarter-finals of that. Downey's playing Knocknagree. Both of these games are on Saturday at 4 o'clock. Downey's playing Knocknagree, and this is the John Finton Daly Rising Army, a team that were junior a couple of years ago. They're playing the Downeys, and it's good, I suppose, from a team from Dunmanway to be at this stage of the championship. Normally they're gone, to be truthful about it, but they've played okay in patches this year. They, Knocknagree, are considered the favourites in that match. And then the other one, it's an even enough affair. Bailongariig versus Clyde Rovers, in that game going on in Ovens. I'm not too sure how it's going. Clyde Rovers can be a bit hot and cold, very poor in one match against Mallow, and I suppose there's a bit of that in Bailongariig as well, a good side a couple of years ago. So that's going to be a really difficult one to call. In the Premier Intermediate football, again, you've Kilnamatra and Kanturk into the semi-finals, and Kanturk are also very much involved in hurling. I know that a few of the Kilnamatra lads play hurling with Clodove, but it's quarter-final. 2 quarter-finals are in action here, and I think it's kind of a hard call really, insofar as Neva Vaughan versus Newmarket. Would I predict that Neva Vaughan would be still involved? I wouldn't really. They played Macroom in the first round, and I thought they were going to fall at that hurdle. I was so wrong. And that game goes on in Mill Street Saturday at 2, and then Sunday 2 in Covey of Aheda taking on Nemo Rangers. And this is the only Nemo team that's left in the championships at this stage. Their Premier Senior team is gone, their Junior team is gone, and normally the Intermediate team is the team that goes out first. So maybe there's something in that. And then, because there's 16 teams in the Intermediate A football, we've got 4 quarter-finals, and these are huge matches for these teams. You have 3 of them on Saturday at 2 o'clock. We have Ahabullogue versus Drumtorff, and Ahabullogue, my God, they've had a bad weekend last weekend in terms of result. They lost the hurling, they lost the Camogie. Drumtorff are a bit of a surprise package in that they were bottom in their group the last day out, and here they are now in a quarter-final. And again, they're a dual club. They're the Duhallow Junior hurling champions and one of the favourites, I would suggest, for the county. So that'll be an interesting game in Mallow, 2 o'clock on Saturday. 2 games at 4 o'clock, Kilshannig, Mill Street and Kilbreen. I fancy Kilshannig, they've been doing well to get over that one. And then Ballydesmond and Mitchelstown in Butterford. You'd have to go the way of, I think you'd have to go the way of Mitchelstown there. They were in a county final last year. They disappointed, it must be said. But I think this is an opportunity to get back into the semi-final at least. And then you have Ivlera, last year's junior champions, unbeaten so far, take on Glanmort on Sunday 2 o'clock in Mornaby, and again it's going to be a big day for the Mid-Cork club. You know, when a team starts winning and moves up the ranks and starts winning matches, you know, it's fabulous for their community, and they're new in this grade, so this is all new territory for them. I predict that they'll probably get over that one as well. And then we have 2 Junior B football championships. Now, you could get confused about Junior B football and Junior B hurling in Cork. There are actually 2 Junior B competitions. One, which is for Junior B clubs only, it's an all-county competition, and that's what's on this weekend. And then there's the one where it's called the Junior B Divisional County Championship, where teams, and it can be the second team, the third team, once they win their division, they then go on to play in a county competition. But I think this particular Junior B it's a great competition for the clubs in it, and they're down out to 4. Garnish playing Randlogue, and Deal Rovers, who are Midfield, playing Goleen. So those games go on. I think one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and like for the clubs involved in it, even though it's, you know, for some of us it's probably away from the madding crowds, if you like, but it's going to be a big day for them. And moving on, then we've got the hurling competitions. Like we've semi-quarterfinals here as well, and as we know in the Premier Senior Hurling, they're down to semi-final stage. They'll be played next weekend. Blackrock playing Middleton, Glen playing the Sars. In the Senior A hurling, Kenturk, and it's good for them that they have a bye, because they're very much a dual club, and this might help to haul a little bit. And Father O'Neill's there in the semi-finals, and they'd be you know, they are 2 of the top teams. But 2 very interesting quarter-final games on Saturday in Portlakeeve at 5 o'clock. You have Blarney, who I think are, you know, one of the favourites for this competition as well. They take on Bride Rovers, another dual club, we're glad to say. They won the East Cork Junior Football Championship, and well done to them. There's about 13 of them play both hurling and football. And then we've got Mallow taking on Newcestown, and like these teams have met before, and trying to predict who's going to come out on top. Maybe the break away from the football would give Newcestown the advantage here. So that's in the senior hurling. In the Premier Intermediate hurling, there's 1 quarter-final to be played, and that's going to be a real classic, I think, on Saturday. Please God, the weather will be okay in Minambridge at 3 o'clock. And it's Ballinhassig versus Carrigaline. Now, Carrigaline lost their first game and then started winning. Ballinhassig won their first 2 games and then lost 1. So this is going to be a massive occasion. They're 2 southeast teams. They know each other really well. And the winners there play Castlelyons in a county semi-final, and the other semi-final in that competition is another all southeast affair between Valiant and Corsie Rovers. In the intermediate A hurling, that's sorted in terms of semi-finals. On next weekend, you've got Sars versus Mayfield and Castlemartin versus Clydove. But the lower intermediate hurling, and this competition is real cutthroat stuff, if you wish, because remember that at the end of next season, 8 of the teams that will be in it at that stage will be relegated into the divisions. That's the plan. So we're down to 1 quarter-final between an improving Arrogline Rangers from Timoleague. They take on Ballygarvan. That game goes on, I think, in Ballinspittle on Saturday at 3 o'clock. And the winners there play Lisgould. The other semi-final, which will be played again next week, is between Kilbrittain and Dracton. So it's a great competition for 2 reasons. The fact winning it would be incredible, but not to be in town in that competition this time next year is where it's vital. Now, the relegation playoffs, or the Slán Lats as we call them, and my God, these are competitions all of their own. If you think about what you need to do to get up the grade and win, to get up to the next grade, well, do you want to lose that? And this is what's facing a number of these teams at the weekend. We've got the Senior A football, Bishopstown and Bantry. Remember, Bishopstown, Premier Senior, then they were relegated. And surely they can't let another relegation happen. And nor will Bantry want to see that. That game goes on Saturday. They're all on Saturday. There's 3 football and 1 hurling. That game goes on in Newcestown. And then we have got the North Side Derby between St. Nick's and St. Vincent's in the Premier Intermediate football. St. Nick's relegated last year, taking on St. Vincent's, and Blake Murphy could have a big say in this. He was outstanding in the hurling last week for St. Vincent in the City Junior Hurling Championship. So how he plays, and this would be unthinkable in some people's eyes for St. Nick's to be relegated again, but that's a distinct possibility. And then in the Intermediate A football, the 2 teams who've been bottom of the pile, so far, Kinsale and Kildare, and going by the results so far, Kildare would be the team that would be favourites to go down. But like, this is a standalone game, fighting for survival. That game goes on in Dunamore. And then in hurling, the big relegation game is between Bandon and Clyne in the senior hurling. And I would think that Bandon, despite injuries and despite difficulties, should be the side that would get through on this occasion. But again, that game goes on in Waterfall, I think, on Saturday. So then moving to the divisions, and like, these have been thrown up in the air in some cases. Number of matches go off last night, but in Boherbue there, junior football, the age-old pairing, if you like, it's Boherbue. My God, I think they're going for their 5th in a row. As I said before about them, they'd prefer, if they weren't, they'd prefer to be gone up and won the county. But that's the difficulty with this championship. So they play at Cullen in Knocknagree at 7:30 on a Friday night. In East Cork, it's junior A hurling time, and here we've got St. Edith's. I think they're appearing in their 3rd final, not in a row, but lost all 3 lost the previous ones, obviously, to teams that went down and won a county championship. They're taking on an Aird's own team. And now Shamie Hannity, who, you know, is kind of troubled with injury a little bit, he's going to be vital to their causes. And, you know, it's a big occasion for them, no doubt in the world. It's a very, very small club. I suppose the hope for a lot of people is that they'll win that one. They're playing Aird's own. Then Avondhu, you've got the junior A football, and that game goes on in the Castleton Roach on Sunday at 3:30. And here is Buttevant, who I think will be the favourites against Kilworth. But remember, Kilworth are now out of the hurling, beaten last week. And Buttevant, I've said it before about them, they did wonderful work at underage a number of years ago. But as of yet, I haven't seen evidence of it really transferring onto the adult team. So we'll wait and see about that. The City Division, this is incredible what's going on here. Their junior A football final is going on Sunday 2:30 between Douglas's 2nd team and St. Michael's 2nd team. And I've asked the question, where are the other teams in the club? That's that situation, that's the way it is. But there's a junior B football in the division in the city, and I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but this is the El Clásico Douglas style. It's their 2 junior B teams have got to the final. And it goes on, as I said, in Balloch at 3 o'clock. 2 teams, I don't know what they described, the Douglas Junior B1 and Douglas Junior B2, but the 2 managers anyway, well, one of them is a real character in the Douglas area. That's Eddie Murphy. He's in charge of one of them, and according to the bookies, he's in charge of the better guys, and a young man called Luke O'Connell is in charge of the other. They have to have a change of jerseys, obviously. Luke O'Connell's team will wear the traditional Douglas team, Douglas colours of the green and black, and then I think the all white are Eddie's. And I'm just wondering, what about all these Douglas hurlers that concentrated in hurling this year and are out of it now? Will they turn up looking for their game? So I'm not too sure. So the El Clásico, the Douglas Derby, takes place on Saturday. So we'll see who will be shouldered high through Douglas Village on after Friday evening, whether it's going to be Luke O'Connell or Eddie Murphy. In the Southeast Division, or the Southwest Division, we're supposed to have the Junior A football final. That can't take place now because the semi-final between Mary's and Clonakilty, which was postponed last night because of terrible weather conditions, now takes place Saturday in Ahiola 3:45. I'd imagine that the Mid-Cork final will take place, the Southwest final would probably take place, the winners playing Tygmacor is probably sometime during the week, and it's a similar situation, even though I don't have the details right now. Their semi-final between Camogie and Ballincollig also fell by the wayside, so I presume that'll be played with the wind. At the weekend, my apologies, with the mighty Hina waiting to play the winners in the Mid-Cork Junior football final. Moving to ladies football, it's, as I said, semi-final and final time now. In the A football, you've got Mourne taking on Bride Rovers you've Aero taking on Bride Rovers at 1 o'clock in Ovens, and the team that topped the group got home advantage. So there's only one way here for this to go. I would imagine Aero would be the favourites there. The same in the second game at 5 o'clock in Mourne, with Mourne taking on Kinsale, and even though it's Kinsale's first time up at this level at Senior A, I can't look beyond Mourne There's a Senior B competition, and these are for the teams that did make it. You know, they played in the group stages, but they didn't make it. And this is another competition. Inch Rovers playing Clásico. Remember Clan last year's intermediate champions. That game, it goes on in Kille on Sunday. Both of them on Sunday. So Inch Rovers versus Clan. These are interesting matches. St. Val's versus Fermoy likewise. I'm not too sure how they will go. There's a big intermediate final fixed for Saturday. No venues yet, and that's between Glenmoire and Valley Rovers. Two seriously evenly matched sides. Glenmoire have been county junior champions a couple of years ago. Valley Rovers last year. I think Glenmoire are slightly, maybe the slight favourites. And then we've got two big junior A football semi-finals in West Cork. Castlehaven taking on Douglas will be the favourites at 4:30 in Castlehaven. And then a little bit earlier, 3 hours earlier, we've the Dawnies, who tried so hard to come up into this grade for a number of years. Well, they're playing Navan, and it'll probably be both of them will win, I would imagine. And then in the Junior C semi-finals, we've Airm's Own versus Mallow. And that game is going on in Caherlag, and Tyke McCorrick's taking on Carrigaline. Carrigaline won last year's final, so I suppose they'll be favourites, but they must travel to Cork for that one. And finally then in Camogie, all the Camogie competitions are finished in adult level from what I can gather, and they're down to the Junior A Camogie, which goes on Saturday in Castle Road at 3 o'clock. And here you've got Ballinora. They're a new kind of a young club against a seasoned side from Mallow, but I still think that Ballinora would be the side that would be the favourites there. And moving then to, as we mentioned at the start, the women's soccer. And here, the performance of the Irish team. You remember last week I was telling you that they were playing Sweden in their opening round of the World 2020 World Qualifying. They did really well. Sweden are the top team in this seed and beaten 1-0. And then to go to Helsinki on Tuesday night and come away with a win was incredible. And the two Cork girls, Nisa O'Sullivan from the north side of Cork City, what a player, getting one of the goals, and Megan Connolly, who, well, I'd say the way it's going, Luke would be Megan's sister before this, as this competition moves on. So then there's two big games coming on, and like basically what I think in here, this is a 5-group team, a 5-team group. My apologies. Sweden are going to qualify, and they reckon that the second spot would be between Finland and Ireland. And because now Ireland have won against Finland, it's a big throw for them. But they've got to win the 2 games in November against kind of the lower seed teams, Slovakia and Georgia, one on the 25th of November and then the other in the on the 30th. And after that then, you go to April, they're away to Sweden. Then in June they have to play a game against Georgia, which was cancelled earlier on. And the 2 last games, 1st of September they're at home to Finland, and then on the 6th of September they're away to Sweden. So a lot of interest, you know, in this in the women's game now, and the fact the games are televised was absolutely brilliant. And finally, for all of those of you who follow Manchester United, you can now leave. What an abysmal last weekend to be beaten 5-0 by Liverpool. And poor old Ollie, they reckon that he's only hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Some people say that he has 3 games to save his managerial career at Manchester United, that is. They play Spurs on Sunday, they play Atalanta during the week in the European Cup, and then next Saturday the handy one against Manchester City. This weekend, or this Saturday, the main games are Leicester will take on Leicester in 9th place, and they take on an improving Arsenal team, for those of you who follow that club. Liverpool, who are absolutely flying, take on Brighton, even though Brighton are not too bad, they're in 5th place. City have an easy game against Crystal Palace. I haven't heard from my Crystal Palace supporter for quite a while. And Newcastle, the money from the Arabs that bought them, they're going to be taking on Chelsea. So it's going to be, look, an interesting time in that. But you know, hopefully before we leave, the main thing is that the weather improves a little bit so that all those matches can take place, and the teams that have, you know, trained so hard will at least have a decent venue and decent conditions to, you know, to fulfill their concluding games in the championship. So until we meet again, take care and God bless.